Hey guys, it's Jen, and I'm excited to bring you my first video in my latest collection Disconnection series. This is a series where I'm using one collection and showing you how to get a bunch of different looks from it. Now, I'm using the Pink Paisley Fancy Free collection, and I know a lot of people have had a hard time getting their hands on it. It's sold out quickly wherever it's been. And so today I wanted to show you a layout where I'm just going to use a few products to show you how you can still get a fun look even if you don't have everything in the collection. So I asked in my last video what people had. Only a couple people responded, but I'm going to use the 6x6 paper pad, the puffy stickers, the phrase stickers, and the chipboard sheet. And so I'm just going to use those four things to show you how you can still have a fun look with this collection without having everything. Even though it's super hard for me when I have some new stuff to not want to use it all, it's good for me to limit myself this way because then I'm not trying to use everything. So I'm using these three photos. These are from my daughter's birthday, and this is just, she wanted for her birthday some storage for her playroom, which sounds weird, but she likes to organize things. So we went to IKEA to get some storage, and I just wanted to make a page about that. There's a photo of the three of us in the car on the way, and then after we got her stuff, and I think they're just fun and cute, and so I'm going to scrapbook those. This is going to be a little bit of a challenge because I've got two vertical and one horizontal 3x4 photo, which is a little bit of a strange combination, so I'm going to have to play around with that a bit to see how I can make that work. But I'm going to go ahead and get started on this layout using these few products.
Okay, so I'm starting by kind of figuring out how I want to arrange my photos, and I thought about overlapping those two on the bottom that are similar, and then placing my other one above it. And so I'm looking through the 6x6 paper pad now to see what papers might match this and how I can layer them up behind it. And you'll notice that my daughter's wearing blue, and that's really the only color that you see in there, so I'm kind of free to play as far as the other colors because everything else is kind of neutral. There is a little shot of pink with her bow, but other than that, I really have the opportunity to play here. So now I'm deciding maybe I'll split the photos up. I've been successful with layouts like that before, where I've kind of made two clusters and there's photos in each. And now I can't decide, but while I'm kind of figuring that out, I'm figuring out what I want to do for my title. I know I want to do something like Best Birthday Ever or Happy Birthday. There was Best Ever in the teal and then Happy in the silver on those foam stickers, and I decided to go with Best Birthday Ever. And what I'm going to do for the word birthday, since there's not the word birthday on there, now I could pull out my thickers and use those, but I'm trying to show you how you can use just a few items here. I am going to hand cut out the letters from a piece of that 6x6 patterned paper, and I'm using that more colorful one. And what I did, so here's a little tip for you, just to make sure all the letters are the same height, I just cut a strip of the paper, and I'm making each letter go from top to bottom. Then I'm just really freeform cutting these, and it's, once you've done it a few times, it's really very simple, and I'm not cutting out the centers of the letters. That's not something I care about, and you've probably seen, but it's been a trend for a while now to sometimes leave the insides of the letters in anyway, and so I like that look and I'm fine with that. So I'm just cutting each letter out here, and I use almost a 6-inch strip of the paper lengthwise. Height, it's about, I don't know, 1.5 inches, 2 inches, I don't know. Anyway, so now I'm going to play around with how I want that to sit, and I thought it looked cute with both of my photos on either side, and this is kind of where the magic happened, and I realized, oh, I could do a grid because the 3x4 photos fit nicely on the side, and then the other one, the 4x3 photo, fit nicely on top. So what I'm going to do is cut some paper down to that same size, and I'm going to create a grid. And I figured I could put my journaling on that blue paper that's a little bit softer and easy on the eyes. Then I'm going to take this confetti paper, and I'm going to put that in 2 of the corners, and then I'm going to take a yellow sheet of paper and put that in 2 of the corners. So I really like the way that ended up, and those are just 3x3 squares, so everything is 3x3 and 3x4, and that leaves a nice big square in the center for my title. So now I'm going to play around with the idea of putting like maybe 1 sticker in each of those quadrants, and I'm going to play around with this for a second, but I am undecided on how I feel about that, and so I'm going to move on to something else while I'm thinking about it. I pull out the chipboard sheet, and I'm thinking about using, there's a little chipboard piece that says selfie, and that one in the car, that picture in the car is a selfie, so I thought about that, but I'm going to play around with that idea a little bit more. I decided to go ahead and type up my journaling. I just used my typewriter and sent that little 3x4 card through it, but you could definitely use your computer for that journaling. So I'm going to just play around with the squares a little bit, and now I'm going to go ahead and get them glued down. I thought I would eyeball it, but I'm going to pull out my ruler, which everyone watch because I don't do this very often, and I'm just putting each one about 1.5 inches from the side. I don't know if it's 1.5 inches, actually. It's 3/4 of an inch. It's one of the larger squares plus 2 small ones. So that's kind of how I measured it. And I just did the 4 corners, and then the rest of it, I'm just going to eyeball centering it in between. The photos aren't exactly perfectly sized compared to the cardstock. They're just a tiny bit smaller, but that's fine. I'm just going to make it look good enough. And yeah, once I get the 4 corners down, then I can just eyeball the rest. So that was a little bit crooked, so I'm just fixing it. And I'm just using my adhesive runner. That's the Thermo Web Tape Runner XL. And I really like how smoothly that glides on. I'm not usually a fan of tapes. I like the dot adhesives, but that one I actually like. I still do love a dot adhesive, but okay, so now for the title, I'm going to center the word birthday first, and then I'll put the words on top and bottom. I wish I had moved it down just a little bit because I wasn't taking into account the accenters of the B and the T on the word best, so it's going to overlap my photo a little bit, but I'm going to be fine with that. So I'm just arranging these, and I'm just putting a little bit of adhesive on them because I already know that I want to stitch through the center of that. I'm going to use my sewing machine and some white thread, so I'm just moving all my stuff so I can pull my sewing machine closer to me. I just have it sitting on my desk, and when I want to use it, I just pull it away from the wall and closer to where I am. So I'm just stitching through it twice, and that will give me a nice look, and I can pull up the letters a little bit so you get that nice shadowing. And anytime I stitch, I just pull the threads through to the back and then secure them with some washi tape. So now that I have that done, I'm going to go ahead and place my my glitter words, and I'll start with the word best, and here's where I kind of see that, oh, I wish I would have left a little more room at the top, but that's okay. It ends up working out. I curved the ever just a little bit so it's kind of bowed, and you'll see that later I'll nestle something underneath there. So I decided to look at the word favorite on the puffy stickers to see if I wanted to do that instead because it was smaller, but I decided not to. So the puffy stickers have a little set of numbers, and the 10 just happens to be just the right colors for this layout, although all of the colors would have worked because it has all of the colors of the kit in it. I thought about using that little chipboard piece that says family at the bottom. And this layout does include our whole family on it, but it was less about the family and more about my daughter, so I decided not to include that. And you'll see that I actually don't use any of the chipboard. So this just really uses 3 pieces from the collection. So if you really could only get your hands on a few things, this is a good example of ways to use that effectively, I think. So again, I'm going to the chipboard to see if I want to use those little X's to I thought about kind of making it look like the squares were stitched together, but it just wasn't looking how I imagined. And so I decided not to. But I really like the way those 3 puffy stickers that are kind of little label shapes look. And all of my embellishment is going to be lined up top to bottom in that center column kind of. But not before I try adding a bunch of stuff to the other squares. So here I'm looking at the little chipboard buttons, and I decide against that, and I'm going to just keep trying to add stuff, but really I don't think it needs it. And I think that's why I kept going back and forth. What I do decide it needs is some more stitching. So I'm going to stitch around all of the cardstock or the patterned paper squares, and just going around once in a square on those patterned papers. And I really like the way that adds just a small detail to that. And after I'm done stitching them, again, I pulled all the threads to the back and secured them with washi tape, and I'm just trimming those threads here. And now I'm going to fluff up the word birthday a little bit more and re-adhere my little puffy stickers. I do add a little extra adhesive to them because I moved them around so much they weren't as sticky, except for the one on the photo because it ended up sticking really well. And putting that little 10 at the bottom of the journaling. So sometimes when I don't have enough to say, or my journaling doesn't cover the entire piece of whatever I've decided to type or write on, it's a good place to kind of find a home for a little embellishment. So that 10 was great. So I decide that the last thing this needs, instead of layering up chipboard pieces on those squares, I decide to do some what I like to call confetti splatters. And the reason why I call it that is because I'm using multiple colors, and when you use multiple colors like this, I just really feel like it looks like confetti. So I'm using Heidi Swapp Gold Color Shine to bring out a little bit of the shininess of the Best Ever. And I just sprinkle it in butter, salmon, and patina. Now I'm letting the splatters overlap the corners of the photos just a little bit because I like the way that the color shine dries on the photos. And I have been stealing that idea for a while now from Adele, who is Inky Quill here on YouTube. I just really like the way it dries on there. It's just shiny and pretty. It does eventually dry. So I'm just using a dried baby wipe to kind of soak up a little bit of the liquid so that it's, I don't want the colors to mix, and so I just want it to be kind of dry before I add the next color. So after these splatters are done, that is going to finish this layout off, and I'm going to go ahead and come back and talk to you real time for just a second here.
Okay, so here is where I'm going to call this layout complete. It's really a very simple layout with very few embellishment, but it looks full and it looks like, you know, it looks complete, it looks done. And I think because there's a grid layout, and a grid layout just really helps everything to stand out. And that was a great way for me to work in these oddly shaped photos and have kind of a large title in the center. I used 4 different pattern papers from the 6x6 paper pad. You can see that I have half or more than half left of each one. And so I can still get a lot more out of these before I'm even done with that. So this uses not too much paper, but I think it definitely feels like the Pink Paisley Fancy Free collection, even just using a very few products. I hope that you'll join me again next week for a new way to use this collection. And if you're not using this collection, you can apply these ideas and concepts to any collection. And be sure to check out my other collection Disconnection video series, which will be on the Collection Disconnection playlist on my YouTube channel, and you can see how I used the Crate Paper Wonder collection in 10 different ways. And if you liked seeing me use these 6x6 paper pads, I have a whole series. My very first series I ever did was on 6x6 paper pads, and it's called 6x6 Paper Pad Love. So be sure to check those out. If you have any questions, just leave a comment below. You can head over to my blog at CraftyJenSchow.com for still photos and more information. And I hope that you have a wonderful day.